Hi everybody, this is Jeff Mendillo from Jacksonville, Florida, amateur model builder. I'd like to share with you my latest project. It's a World War I biplane fighter. My girlfriend Sandra asked me to build her a World War I fighter, a biplane fighter, so that she could hang it over her bar at her house. So I searched around. I found this model made by a company called Roden, which is, I believe, out of Germany. It was smaller than I thought it would be when I got it, but I went ahead and put it together, and it turned out okay. I made a lot of mistakes. This is only like the second model that I have built since I took a 4-year hiatus in building models. But the model is what's referred to as the RAF, the Royal Aircraft Factory SE 5A, SE standing for Scout Experimental. It's a World War I biplane. It's one of the fastest, most stable, and relatively maneuverable fighters from World War I. It's often referred to as the Spitfire of World War I. It's comparable to the Sopwith Camel. Early versions of the SE5 had some problems with the engine. It was only 150 horsepower. It was not very reliable. Then a company called Wolseley developed a newer engine, a 200 horsepower version called the Viper, and that is what this model here is a representative of. It was a rival to the planes that were flown by the Red Baron, and I think a lot of people don't realize that the Red Baron was not a World War I plane. It was a World War I fighter pilot that was one of the greatest fighter pilots in the history of all of warfare. His name was Manfred Witthoven, and he had more than 80 confirmed victories in World War I, which is pretty impressive for flying older, biplane fighters with, not a lot of horsepower, not a lot of speed, but at the time, he was the best. And he had a tendency to paint his planes all red with some gray markings and struts and things like that, but that's why he was called the Red Baron. He flew a plane, a German-built plane called the Albatross, which is a very, very good plane for World War I. Many of the RAF SE-5As were shot down by those planes, by the Red Baron, as were the Sopwith Camel, which was another British-built plane that was flown in World War I, which is also a very good plane. So, like I said, this is only really the second model that I built since I took some time off. I made a lot of mistakes. As you can see, if you look at it, the wings are not exactly symmetrical like they should be. The space between where the pilot sits and the upper wing is way too low. There's other problems. There's glue globs and paint that's just not quite right. I still think it's pretty cool. I tried to do my best putting the decals on to represent the squadron that this particular paint scheme would match. And given that this was a German airplane, or a German company that built the model, there were no words in the instructions. It was just pictures. There was no sequence for what parts needed to be put on in what order in each square. Here's kind of a little sample of the way that the instructions looked. No instructions, no verbal or written instructions, which made it a little bit more difficult. I'd say that this was probably a plane that an expert or an advanced amateur would do better at the job that I did. But I still think it turned out pretty good. The only thing I have left to do is to drill some holes in the wings and put the fish line up so that they can hang above her bar like she wanted. It took me about 40 hours to build it. Somebody who's really good would probably take a lot less time than that, but it's pretty cool, you know. And I said it's smaller than I thought it would be, and I enjoyed it. I moved on. I will move on to my next project, which is another bomber from World War II. I've built many of those, but just to give you an idea of what I used, you know, I got my paints, I got my toothpicks, my X-Acto knife, good pair of snips, good pair of needle nose pliers, lots of good paint brushes, glue. This glue here is the glue that dries clear and also can make parts. I highly recommend it. The regular glue, the tester's glue, is not as forgiving. If you get that on a piece of glass, it's ruined, and I've done that to many models. Also, my magic foam thing there for holding parts and things like that, and my illuminated magnifying glass. So, a labor of love. It was a lot of fun. A little frustrating at times because the parts are so small. I'm not used to building a model that's not a monogram or an AMT or something like that, which is very simple, but it was a lot of fun. And here it is in all its glory for one more little example of the way it looks. Markings from W13, which I haven't been able to figure out what that means, but imagine that flying around in World War I next to the Sopwith Camel flying against the Red Baron. The wheels don't move, the propeller doesn't move. It's just the way this model was built, you know, and that's the way it looks in its perfection. This is the way it looks when I made it. So thanks for watching. I'll have more stuff in the future.